Well, a very riveting account of the Battle of the Bulge in World War II from someone who was there. Our guest is 94 years old, and he fought alongside of General Patton at the Battle of the Bulge. So we'll talk to him, one of the last few guys who can really talk about World War II. First, I'll tell you about Madison Reed Mister. Now, Madison Reed has been around, and they make great products for women, and women can color their hair. And at some point, they went, well, let's make it for men. Why not? Blend that gray in. It's natural looking. You can do your hair, beard, and both. You can go onto their website and see before and after shots. No shoe polish look. It's just a little more pepper and a little less salt. That's all. Madison Reed Mister makes it easy to find the color. Again, you match it up on your website. Lynette and Gina love this stuff too. So for the men and for the ladies, quick and easy. Just apply the gel to your dry hair, then the activator, and just rub it in, let it sit for 10 minutes, and shampoo it out. It's Madison Reed Mister, right, Dawson?
Go to MadisonReedMister.com. That's MadisonReedMR.com, and use code Adam10 for 10% off, plus free shipping on your first box. Again, that's code Adam10. Adam Carolla's I'm Your Emotional Support Animal, navigating our all-woke, no-joke culture, has over 1,000 5-star reviews on Amazon. Here's one.
Carolla always put out top-notch production, and this is certainly no exception. Definitely recommended read.
Thanks, Ozzy. Pick up I'm Your Emotional Support Animal now. Available in all formats. For more, go to AdamCarolla.com.
World War II veteran, 94 years young, Frank Sisson is on. The book is called I Marched with Patton, a first-hand account of World War II alongside one of the U.S. Army's greatest generals. It is available October 20th, but you can pre-order it now on Amazon. Frank Sisson, you there?
I'm right here.
Oh, man. Well, thanks for your service, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
You joined at age 18 in 1944. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I don't know how many living World War II veterans there are, but there cannot be many of you guys left because you'd have to enlist very young and close to the end of the war as you did, right?
Well, yeah, that's about right.
What do we know what the count is? Do you go to a convention every year? Do you keep track of people?
Oh, I don't. I don't. There's not very many at all. And I guess I'm in good health, and I've always been in good health. So that's what I count for my longevity.
Brian, yeah, sorry.
I see they're estimating about 300,000 World War II veterans survive to this day. It's an estimate, of course.
Wow, that's I'm actually surprised that it's 300,000. That feels like
right, 300,000.
That's what the computer says.
The Pew Research, yeah.
So did you enlist in 1944? You go to the European theater and no.
Yeah, I went to Fort Sill and volunteered for the United States Artillery.
And you start off with Patton, or where do you go at the beginning?
Well, I started out with Bradley.
Oh, Bradley.
I was in the First Army. Then when Patton wanted a barrage of artillery, I went with Patton, and I'm glad I did. And I think General Patton was the greatest general the world has ever seen. He had a bad mouth, but he had a good job killing our enemy.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what you're looking for out of a general. What was your artillery? What is it? What equipment? What was your weapon?
Our weapon was a 155 howitzer, and they're a very, very powerful weapon. The Germans had an 88 caliber. We had a 105 and a 155, which we outnumbered them in artillery. And we could keep like 6 or 7 rounds of artillery in the air before the first one hit the ground. So when they put up an artillery barrage, it was powerful.
So the first one would launch, and you could get the shell out, put in a new round, launch that one, and do that times 5 while the first one was still in the air?
That's right. That's right.
What was the range on something like that?
Well, those were about around 15 miles, 20 miles most. But the biggest range was 25 miles. That was a 155 howitzer, and it was a powerful weapon.
You know, it's a crazy statistic, and somebody can look it up. But when it comes to those projectiles in the military, I think a battleship can fire a 2,000-pound round back in the day like 25 miles.
Yeah, right.
Meaning it's essentially like taking a VW Bug and launching it from Glendale, California, and having it land on the Santa Monica Pier and be able to do it over and over and over again.
Well, the artillery barrage that we had, our General Patton, he wanted to make sure. So he lined the artillery up, and they all had a sequence to fire. And they fired, and they fired, and they fired. The first night, my outfit fired 25 of those big rounds in one night's time. 25.
What?
And,
so how much ground did you cover with Patton? Where did you start off?
Well, according to the spotter, we would put an observation point up like as high as point we could find, and we fought within that perimeter until we could see we weren't doing any good, so we'd move up a little bit and do some more and some more and some more, and until we just aggravated the Germans to death. They didn't know where the fire was coming from, and consequently, that's how we won that war with it.
How?
We won that war.
So I think we've all seen the George C. Scott version of General Patton with the pearl-handled revolver and the side holster and everything. Obviously, you've seen that movie. What was the real guy like compared to that Hollywood's version of him?
More down to earth. The Hollywood version is, he would stand up there. He stood on top of that one mountain in Hollywood, and he looked down in the valley and saw all of the action that was going on in that valley. And Patton said, "Oh, God, I love it." Well, that was not Patton. Patton really didn't love war, but he knew how to handle it. And he fought with every ounce of strength he had, and he wouldn't send his men into any war or any area that he wouldn't go himself.
I believe this is just a piece of trivia that I have in my head, but and it's sort of how life works. Patton, after all these battles, dies in a Jeep accident. I think he died in a Jeep accident, like literally after the war. Like, just, here you are, Germans and machine guns and bombs and artillery and everything, and how do you die? You die in a Jeep accident after the war. Like, that's how life works. We're always so worried about the big stuff, and I don't know, you can look that up, Kalen, but I'm pretty sure he died in a Jeep accident shortly after the war. Or Frank, you must know.
Frank, give him your opinion of what really happened.
I'm not in a position to do that. I don't know.
Now we have to know.
Is there a conspiracy theory here?
Well, let's put it this way. The truck that did the damage, they never did find it. They never found that truck.
Really?
So the truck that hit him.
Where is that big 18-wheeler?
Oh, so is the theory that somebody wanted to get rid of him?
Oh, I don't know about that. That's the opinion. I have no evidence to that.
But there was a significant feeling that the Russians wanted Patton dead, and that was an element that circulated is part of it. My name's Robert Wise. I'm part of writing the book. But that theory was a significant theory later after the war.
So what was the story of him dying in the Jeep? And I'm sure the Russians wanted him dead. Why wouldn't they? They'd probably want everyone dead after the war. But
it was a headache as far as opening up new fronts. And once he told Eisenhower, "You give me a couple of weeks, and I'll make these SOBs think they started the war."
Is he talking about the Russians at that point?
Yeah, he hated the Russians, and I don't blame him. I didn't have much love for him myself.
So when was it? Sorry, Robert. But what do you know about Patton dying after? Was it very shortly after the war had ended?
Yeah, it was. I don't know exactly what day he died, but
it's December 8th, 1945, which had to be right at the end of the war.
The war was completed. He was in a hospital. They flew his wife to the hospital, and Patton was essentially paralyzed from the neck down, and lamented with his wife that here he was in a bed. This was the way he was going to die. And not very long after that, he just passed away. I read his book. Patton wrote a book on the whole war, and it was part of the discipline that he received for some of the comments he made. They sent him off to Austria. He wrote the book, and it's an interesting book to read. I'm not sure there are very many of them around anymore, but it's his picture of what happened, how he reflected on it, and how his final thoughts were recorded.
So, Battle of the Bulge. That was the big one. What are your recollections of that, Frank?
Well, it was the Battle of the Bulge is listed as the greatest land fight that ever was, and there's over 100,000 killed in that battle alone. And, it was bloody. And besides that, it was sub-zero weather. If the enemy didn't shoot you, you froze to death. If you're lucky, you were able to stay busy or wear. I had on every piece of clothing I owned, and I was still freezing. So,
tell him what the temperature was.
70 and 80 below zero.
Oh my Jesus.
Now, if you can imagine, a deep freeze that you buy your ice cream at is 10 below. Well, this is 80 below. That freezes your freezer. So, and the cars, trucks and stuff got transmission froze, and we had to order in some battery wraps to put around the transmission so that vehicles could keep moving. And the artillery shells, we had to back off because the gun barrels were turning white from us firing it so much. And we just fire every other round, every other gun would fire while the other was reloading. That way it kept the temperature down on those guns. And they didn't melt. They made out of solid stainless steel, but you could keep pouring the lead to them and they'd melt the barrels of the guns.
Where would you also have to remember, this is long before any, synthetic materials. It was like wool and leather, and they didn't have the stuff they have now at the REI. You had
Gore-Tex.
You had blankets and stuff. Like, where did you sleep? How did you sleep?
Well, we had a bedroll, and the bedroll was like wool, and it was very uncomfortable, to say the least. And you never undressed. I never took my clothes off for 42 days. I never took my boots off for 42 days.
You didn't take your boots off for 42 days.
Boots on, and I'd sleep with all my clothes on, and you mean I got to go out and lay this telephone wire in this temperature? I'm about to freeze my bums off as it is.
How sad is it that the Battle of the Bulge, this arduous, decisive, bloody battle from World War II is now, I think most people today know Battle of the Bulge from like morning TV shows like, New Year's is over. Are you fighting the Battle of the Bulge?
Yeah, I know. That's sad. That is sad.
It's extremely sad.
So, Frank, how did the Germans, I guess you would learn sort of, how the Germans fought. How did they fight? Was there a way they fought that felt different? Or, I think of them, like I think of their equipment is very good. The Panzers were very good. The Tiger tanks were very good. Like they had, as you could imagine, the Germans had really good equipment.
They had good artillery and good machine guns. They had the very tops in equipment, but so did we. We had really top-notch, not top-notch artillery, and we would fire artillery into the German camp, and the Germans would go to the bomb shelter until the firing was over. But it didn't turn off for 42 days. We shipped truckload after truckload of ammunition in for the artillery rounds. And the Germans that we took captive were almost insane. They said, "You guys never stop. That pounding, that constantly, day and night, and it just drove the Germans nuts and crazy until they wanted to turn themselves in and get a good night's sleep and some food."
How many did your battalion capture Germans, and how did that work if you did?
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 captive German soldiers, and that Battle of the Bulge was a pathetic battle. There was dead bodies laying everywhere, and farmyards. I saw one motorcycle with two gliders on it sitting in a frozen lake, and both of them were just tipped over in that, it was just pathetic, shell after shell after shell, and banging, and the guys couldn't even get out of their foxhole to go to the restroom. They couldn't get out of there to get them something to eat. They just had to live in that mess.
Gina, you got a question?
Yeah, so I read that you were among the first American soldiers to liberate Dachau, the concentration camp. And, we learned so much about that in school, and for, much of at least my Jewish childhood, this is sort of just something that we just are inundated with. But I've never spoken to somebody who's experienced that firsthand. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yes, ma'am. We were, coming around the side of the mountain in our truck, our army truck, and my driver, he said, "Frank, I think there's some action going right up there." And we looked, and he said, "Yeah, there is." And I said, "Let's go check it out." The war was about over, so we weren't worried about getting shot or anything, but we needed to check that out. So we go up there, and sure enough, it was a concentration camp, and I asked the man in charge of, "Can we help you?" And he said, "Yeah, pick those guys up and put them in the ambulance, because we're taking them to the hospital, and don't feed them anything. Don't give them anything to eat. You can give them water out of your canteens, but don't feed them because their stomachs can't take it."
Right.
They haven't had anything to eat in several days, and they're starving to death, and any food in their stomach would cause them all kinds of pain. So we went over and picked this 80-pound man. Excuse me.
It's very hard to talk about this. My uncle was in Dachau concentration camp, and written several books about that experience. And it's almost unbelievable that any human being could do what the Nazis did.
Well, we went in and started picking these little 80-pound men up. He was 7 foot tall. This guy was a big guy. He's almost 7. He's like 6.5 feet tall anyhow. Easy to pick up and carry him over to the ambulance, and they'd take him to there and put him in a bed. And I tell you, it took months to really get over the sight of seeing such skinny, bony people. I don't know how they stayed alive. I really don't. We didn't lose them. Everyone in that compound, we took them to the ambulance and they carried them to the hospital and put them on rations, and they all lived according to.
Wow. So they
Unbelievable.
They kept track.
I couldn't sleep very good for several nights.
Well, and it shows too that there's no amount of time that can pass that can ease the pain of those memories.
They don't leave you. They
true.
don't leave you.
And I never shared any of this with my children at all. Not this.
Yeah.
Not this.
So, that was after the Battle of the Bulge. And where did you go? When did you come back stateside after that, or were you stationed in Germany or somewhere else?
I had a choice. I could stay with that unit and be a liberation unit, or I could. They wanted to send me to Berlin as a detective in the military police, which I looked forward to doing it, so I took it and really enjoyed it, except for the Russians. The blasted Russians, I tell you. I don't know. God had a day off when he made the Russians, I guess. I don't know. But,
tell them what they said about the worst in America.
I tell everybody that the worst GI in the American Army, the sloppiest, the misdressed, and the whole thing, he could be a general in the Russian Army.
Wow.
And I think I'll share that. I had one, I think it was. The military police, on their tour, they brought a Russian general in to headquarters, and he and his driver both were intoxicated.
What?
Really? And I told the guard, take this driver down, put it in the slammer, and we'll take care of the general up here. It's as a courtesy to the German, to the army, and he didn't like being treated like that, so he picked up a wire basket and started beating the clerk over the head with it. And I grabbed his arm and spun him around, and him being drunk, he went clear back to the back of the room, and that back room was brick wall. And I said, "Oh, thank God for brick walls, because if I had to shoot it, my weapon, this wall would protect anybody in this building." But anyhow, I grabbed the Russian, and he was going for his pistol. I thought, my gosh, man, you're in I said, Frank, you can't kill this guy in here. And in MP headquarters, everybody in your hometown's going to know it. And I said, what am I going to do? To myself, and it's amazing how fast your brain can work. And it said, shoot between his legs. And if he still comes up with that pistol, shoot him dead center. I'll give him that break. Well, I threw the shot between his legs, and he threw the pistol as high as he could throw it. Started screaming, no, 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 in Russian.
Yet.
And upstairs, or the jailer come running upstairs. What's going on? And I said, the idiot here drew his pistol, so took him down, throw him in the slammer. We'll call his folks to come get him. And the guard took him out of that water he was standing in and took him on down to the jail and locked him up. And they came after him. And by the way, while they were putting him in the back of the truck, they tore the bars off his shoulders. They ripped all of his insignia off and everything off his sleeves, and they took all of his nominations away from him. They didn't know who he was anymore, so I don't think he made it home.
The notion, you think, I always think about these ideas, like I sort of think about, oh, we'll have a drinking fountain for white people and a drinking fountain for black people. And you go, how long could that idea last? Like, how long would that? East Berlin, West Berlin. We'll take Berlin, we'll put a big concrete wall through the middle of it. We'll have machine gun nests there. And then we'll just have part the people live over here and the other part will live over there. Like, first off, I can't believe that kind of stuff goes on as long as it went on.
It went on for a long time. I was gone home by then. I wasn't in that area. I was there before the wall. So, all I know is that the regular German people were nice to know, and they weren't responsible for that war. The Nazis were responsible for that war, and they paid for it.
Yeah, and the Soviets were responsible for the wall, which again, I don't know how that ever could have worked.
The president told them, take down this wall.
Yeah, I think Hasselhoff played a key role in it as well. I don't know if you're a big fan. So you then return home. What year do you come back to the United States?
45.
And after
46, I guess. Yeah, I'm a year older, so I don't.
You've seen a lot of death and a lot of things that a lot of people shouldn't see. Does it affect you when you come back to the United States?
Not now. I can handle it now, but there's times at night I wake up and I'm thinking along that line, and I get up and drink some milk or something, and I go back to it. I'm 96, 95 years old, and I've been married for 74 years, so to the same wife, incidentally.
But I'll tell you that for 50 years I've known Frank, and it was only in the last 3 or 4 years when we started working on this book that I looked up on the wall and I saw the plaque to the Battle of the Bulge, and I said, Frank, what is that? He said, oh, I don't talk about it. And that's when we started talking about it. So all those decades prior to that, where I knew this guy extremely well, he never talked about it.
Wow.
Yeah. And now, yeah. Go ahead, Frank.
No, that's all right. I'll have that thought later.
You know, it's such a time because back then everyone did everything and didn't talk about it. Now people rescue a dog from a pound and they have to advertise to everyone what a hero they are for getting a free dog from the pound.
They liberated the dog.
Yes, God, could you imagine what your average 19-and-a-half-year-old would have to say when they got back from the Battle of the Bulge today, when they could get their hands on Twitter? I mean, it'd be nonstop.
He wouldn't get back.
Yeah. Oh, good point.
Well, that's a good point too. All right, let me hit a sponsor here. Red Cap, comfort done right, making workwear and uniforms since 1923 for the essential workers, making our communities thrive. Clothing for many industries, automotive, culinary, manufacturing, waste management, oil block coveralls, resist engine fluids. Oil just beads up and rolls right off. Latest project is for the road heroes, the truckers out there, the truckers tab it's called. It's a $50,000 tab at Cracker Barrel to feed our long haul truckers. Check it out at truckertab.com. You know, everyone is talking about the first line and the front row and the battlefields and everyone who's doing all the work. How about all the truckers that are supplying all the supplies to all these hospitals and all these markets and all the stuff you use every day? So you can donate as well. I did it. Go to truckertab.com. That's truckertab.com. Red Cap workwear done right. So what did you do when you got back, Frank, to the United States? You've been married for 73 years, I believe. So you got married shortly after getting back. Did you?
When I got back from the war, I was downtown and with my little brother, and my wife to be walked across the street in front of us, and I asked him, "Who is that?" And he said, "Her name is Donna." Millard. Her dad is the pastor, our new pastor. And I said, well, she went in that restaurant. Let's go down there. And he said, all right. So they said, what for? And I told him, I said, well, in as much as that's the lady I'm going to marry, I think we ought to get acquainted.
I love that so much. Whatever happened to the days of just being sure? Like, I saw that woman and I knew that was the one. Like, now it's like, he didn't text me back, so I'll move on.
How long you waited before you got married?
2 months later, we got married.
Wow.
We had 4 kids and had 8 grandkids and 16 great-grandkids.
Wow. Was this in Oklahoma?
In Oklahoma, and I just had one wife, and I don't want another wife. I trained this one well, and that's the only one I need to train. And, let me update you just a little bit. When I was 15, my father died and left me the sole head renter of the family. I had 2 little brothers, a sister, and my mother. And Social Security paid $18 a month. Yeah, that's not very much, but in my day, it was a lot of money, but, I didn't know how we was going to make out. So I heard that, I could go to a town about 16 miles away, take a welding course, and then they'd ship me to California and I could work in the shipyards, welding little Liberty ships together, which I took them up on it. And, then I stayed there for, almost 3 years. Then I got 18, so I went to Fort Sill and joined the military and ended up getting through the war, and I never got a scratch.
Did you work for Kaiser building those Liberty ships?
I sure did. Kaiser Wilhelm Shipyard.
Yeah, Kaiser. The same Kaiser Permanente.
I don't know. I often wondered about that, but
it's the same place.
So we could go over there and fight Kaiser Wilhelm's ex-people.
Yeah. Kaiser Permanente, the hospital, it started from Kaiser Liberty ships, and they had so many employees that they had to open their own hospital. Like they had, thousands of employees all welding and moving steel around and building those ships all simultaneously. And so you needed your own hospital, essentially. And they had their own hospital. And then I guess when the war ended, there was no more Liberty ships to build. None of the, Greyhound sort of Tom Hanksy ships that he was defending with this.
I came home on one of those Liberty ships.
Oh, you did?
I said, God, don't let this be one I have to be that bill.
Yeah. So, they stopped building, troop transports and transport ships and got into the hospital business, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess so.
Diversified.
Yeah.
Diversified,
yeah.
It's
I have a post-war question for Frank. Frank, I don't know the answer to this, and maybe it's no, but were you ever fortunate enough to come in contact with any of the I don't know how to put it, some of the people who were held at Dachau? Did you ever have any interaction? Did you ever meet anybody? I mean, that's a pretty powerful thing, I imagine.
Well, my daughter and my wife both went back to Germany and went through the old Dachau plant. What was open to the public, they went back and went through it. I didn't want to see it.
Sure.
I didn't see it anymore. I couldn't get it out of my head anyhow, so I didn't have any desire at all to see it.
Yeah, what would be the reason?
Understandable.
Yeah.
Souvenirs from the prison that I'd picked up there, and I gave them to my doctor, which is a Jew, and he thought I'd give him some diamonds, because he said, these are not going on my desk, they're going in the
memorial
synagogue.
The synagogue. The synagogue.
Wow.
So he took them, put them in the synagogue with my name on them.
Wow.
That was great. I enjoyed that.
But if you read the book, you'll find in the last part of the book that Frank's daughter traced the ancestry of his family and discovered that his grandmother was Jewish, and that the Jewish settlement that was very close to Dachau had his ancestors So there was a possibility that when he was saving those prisoners of war, he could have been feeding his own relatives.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. I got goosebumps.
It's that whole,
That's my people go.
That's right.
that whole,
No kidding.
the whole part where Hitler is waging a war against the entire world and into genocide simultaneously is so insane if you think about it. The fact that he was attempting to do, well, first off, you know, Germany's not that big. The world is pretty big. The notion that Germany would just basically wage war against the world. I know they had Italy and then Japan was in the Pacific theater, but the idea that you would simultaneously try to do both these things when it was already stacked against you just to win the war against the world proves what a complete nut job he was. Like it was strategically, it's a horrible idea to put
waste of resources.
Think about so many resources into just this evil act that doesn't get you the war won at all. Frank, had you even heard, when was the first time you'd heard about these concentration camps?
Well, when I was just a kid, like 15, 16 years old, in my hometown, when they attacked Pearl Harbor. Some words came out then about Dachau and all that. I mean, these concentration camps, and Chinese, I think, had a lot of that going on.
So you were aware of it when you were stateside?
Oh yeah, and we looked at it in school, and the newspapers that would come out, and it showed little Chinese boys sitting on the ground crying in a crowded street, and it was pathetic.
But the German version of it, had you heard about that stateside?
I can't. I'm with you. I don't know why they would be so dumb, as the war was going on as it was, and they were already losing the war. And when they run out, it's my opinion that when they run out of gasoline, the war was over.
Right. Well, they should have got the Green New Deal going earlier on and had some wind and solar and renewables that could still be fighting today. The book is called I Marched with Patton, a firsthand account of World War II alongside one of the U.S. Army's greatest generals. It'll be available October 20th, but you can pre-order it today on Amazon and get a gripping firsthand account of World War II from someone who was there. Frank, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
And thanks, Robert, for filling in some of the spots in between.
Well, we appreciate being with you.
And I think we're going to talk to Frank on a Take a Knee coming up, right? So we'll get into more details with Frank. So Frank Sisson, hang on hold there, and I think we'll talk to you about Take a Knee off the air.